I would like to request first Swami Atmajyanananda ji to start, tonight's program with the grace of the mind. But, just a quick correction, my sincere apology for an incorrect information. Swami Atmajyanananda is currently the minister in charge at the Vedanta Center of Greater Washington, D.C. in Silver Springs. He's not the resident minister anymore. He's currently the minister in charge. So, Swamiji, please.
His salary is the same. So nice to be here. We met here, I don't know how many years ago. And I think there was a big storm that night. And Swami Sarvadevanandi was supposed to come but couldn't come. Does anyone remember?
Yes, we do.
How many years ago was it? It was a long time ago. Anyhow, it's very nice to see everyone here. You heard the topic that I'll be speaking on. This comes from one of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, and many of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna are expressed by him in the words of a song. He'll have a special teaching, and it'll be based on some idea that can be found in an earlier song. Very often it's a Ram Prasad song, but many different types of songs. So this is one of them, and I'll read the main line first. It says, Guru Krishna Vaishnav Tine Doya Hole Akar Doya Bine Jivo Chare Khare Galo. So it's Bengali, of course, it's a Bengali song. And Swami Brahmananda, our first president of the order, was very fond of this and often spoke about this. Swami Brahmananda was not one to give lectures. He was fortunate that way, that he avoided that. But he gave many teachings to the young monks, and they were recorded. So we have many of his teachings. So let me translate this first. Even if one has the grace of these three, the Guru, the Lord, and the devotees, the Jiva, lacking the grace of the one, becomes nothing but dust and ashes. And this one is the mind. So this is a very wonderful teaching, but also a curious teaching, because we all assume if we have the grace of God, we don't need anything else. So this is placing the grace of the mind even above that. So let me read it again. Even if one has the grace of these three, the Guru, the Lord, here it says Guru Krishna Vaishnava, it's of course Vaishnava is the same, and the devotees, the Jiva lacking the grace of the one, becomes nothing but dust and ashes. And then Swami Brahmananda says, the one is the mind. If the mind is conquered, the world can be conquered. All spiritual practice and discipline are for that alone, the conquest of the mind. So I want to start just with going back to Swami Brahmananda, because most of the teachings that he gave were the most important, the most essential elemental teachings in spiritual life. He didn't speak to large groups. It was generally to the most sincere spiritual seekers, generally to the young monks who would join. And everything was based on teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. This is one thing that all of the direct disciples We won't find any of their teachings that don't go back to Swami Krishna himself. So anyhow, he said, listen again, addressing the young monks. My boys, you have the grace of the Guru. Many of them were his disciples. You have the grace of the Guru. You have the desire for spiritual knowledge. By receiving the Lord's name, you have received his grace. And you also have the society of the holy. Now you must strive to get the grace of your own minds. By gaining mastery over your own minds, you will, by its grace, realize the grace of God and the grace of the Guru. So, as I say, it's a fascinating concept that what is so wonderful about the grace of the mind that is more important than the grace of God. And what do we mean by the grace of God? Now, we know, if we're talking about the grace of God, that we've been given spiritual illumination. That'll be the highest. So it has to be taken down a notch. The grace of God has to mean something a little bit less than that. But still, the grace of the Guru, we know, again, the importance of the Guru in spiritual life. That this is the one person who cares for us more than mother and father or anybody else in the world. This is the one person who is willing to forego his or her own liberation for the liberation of the disciple. This is the one who will do anything. We have the example of Swamiji himself, Swami Vivekananda, with Swami Sadanandaji. How his own disciple, when he fell ill, practically carried his shoes on his head even, for the sake of the disciples. And the love that Swami Krishna had for those young boys. How he longed to see the face of Narendra, later Purna, and all of them. So we know about the grace of the Guru. This is essential in spiritual life. The touch of the Guru, the direct communication, the direct transference of spirituality from the Guru, receiving the mantra, and having that living example of spirituality before us. So there's no question about that. We understand the importance of the Guru. Now, Guru mantra. What about the grace of God? Now, we have to understand this, as I say, in a slightly lower way. If we look at Vekachudamani, the initial verse there, where they talk about different types of grace also. So we have this grace of holy company, that would be the grace of the Guru. And we have this human birth and this longing for liberation. So this grace of God, we can say, is that we've been given this human birth. We've been given every possible opportunity. We've been born at a time so close to Swami Krishna and Holy Mother. If we think in terms of this, thousands and thousands of years of history, how close we are to the lives of these avatars, and many of us are disciples of Swami Krishna or Holy Mother themselves. That it's so close to us, so we can take this as part of the grace of God, and even this longing for liberation. These also don't come. So this grace of God has a slightly different meaning. I'll tell a story that illustrates this very nicely. There was a king in a small kingdom, and he wanted to know what the life of the ordinary subject in his kingdom was like. So he went to his minister and said, you pick out a very typical family, and I'll come and visit at one point, and I'll get a chance to see how people in my small kingdom, how they live. Are they happy? Are they getting enough food? Is everything okay? So he sent the minister. The minister went and found one family, and he saw that they lived in a house that was not very clean, that needed repair, that they didn't have anything nice to receive the king. So he sent his workers there. They cleaned up everything. They brought a nice table and chair, a nice tea set, and everything like that. And then they said, we've done all of these things for you, and now the king himself will come. So coming of the king himself will be the final grace. But before that, this grace comes in the form of this purity of heart. It comes in the form of viveka vairagya, this devotion and love and dispassion, all of the spiritual qualities. So we can take that also as the grace of God. By the grace of God, so many advantages have been given to us. Okay. So we can take it that way, that we have the grace of the Guru, we have the grace of God, and we have the grace of all the devotees. So many different things have been given to us. So now we can say, we can go back and look at this verse, despite the fact that we've been given everything. If the mind won't cooperate, then we're in trouble. Now, this grace of the mind, we can say grace for one particular reason, and this isn't necessarily a spiritual reason. And I see many people here, or we can say senior citizens. Huh? Most of us senior citizens, and many of us have friends or family members that suffer from some type of memory loss or dementia or even more serious things. And when we reach this age, we have aches and pains in the body. If the mind is still functioning nicely, we have most of our memory, not that we will all lose some of it, we can say, by God's grace, at least the mind is working. So this will be one way of looking at it, but in the spiritual context, the grace of the mind means that mind which can lift us up. We have the verse from Bhagavad Gita that the mind has the power to pull us down and the power to pull us up. It has the power to be our best friend and our worst enemy. So this mind, the grace of the mind, from that point of view, will be the mind that's under control. The mind that's not at the mercy of selfish desires, of the passions, that give into anger and jealousy and hatred, and lust and greed and pride. All of these, if the mind could be rid of these things to a certain extent, if we can have some control over the mind, we sit for meditation, the mind wanders all over. This is common. Everybody thinks it's their own personal problem, but everybody should know that it's everybody's problem. And as we get older, it would be nice to think that after all these years of meditation, the mind becomes more and more under control. But it doesn't work that way. As we get older, the mind also loses its vigor a little bit. So we shouldn't be surprised if we look back and think, I could control my mind better when I was younger. But at least we can control, as we get older, the passions. At least we can control the tendency of the mind to be angry and to be jealous and all of that. And we can control the force of desires when we're young, how we're thrown about by this and that desire for enjoyment, for power, for pleasure, for all different types of things. So this will be one sense in which we can get the grace of the mind. Let this mind become our best friend. Now, Swami Krishna says there'll come a time when the mind itself becomes the guru. So that means at that point we can trust the mind. The mind that is not purified, the mind that's not under our control, will fool us. It'll make us think that something is good for us because it wants to enjoy something. So there's always this struggle between this lower mind and the higher mind. And if we can get to that point where this lower mind is cooperating, becomes our friend, and the mind will monitor the mind. So as we get older, we may not be able to sit for long hours in meditation, but at least we should get to the point where we've learned a few lessons in life. That we've learned this life is too short to get worried about small things. That we've reached that point where we know what's important in life. We have priorities. So we reach that point where we can understand that this life will come to an end at some point, and we want to be able to say that we've achieved something in this lifetime. So getting that type of mind that has a certain amount of purity, a certain amount of maturity in it. This is also one way of understanding the grace of the mind. Now I want to talk about the second way. We have this term prasada. This term prasada, very often it's translated as grace. We have Ram Prasad. We have so many different names in that way. So the grace of God, we can say. But this word prasada also has this meaning of clear and translucent and quiet. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 and other chapters, we have this conception of this serene mind. The quiet mind is the mind that is not coloring everything, that we can see. If you've ever been to any tropical beach, that the water will be so clear. There'll be all different colored pebbles and things at the bottom. You can see straight through it. This is that state of grace of the mind. Mana prasada. It's a beautiful concept. We have this term in Gita again. It talks about different types of happiness, sattvic happiness. And we get this term, Atma Buddhi Prasada Jam. So Atma Buddhi Prasada Jam. Jam means born. So this sattvic mind, this quiet mind, this peaceful mind, is born from this type of clarity. This clarity where we can understand the real nature of the self. Atma Buddhi. We understand, have that understanding that I am that infinite absolute reality. And it comes from this grace of the mind, prasada. So the grace of the mind means this quiet mind, this clear mind, translucent mind. As Ramakrishna says, that this very pure mind is one with this pure intellect, is one with the pure self. So this is also a type of a state of grace, we can say, of the mind. Now there's a third type that I would say comes from a type of clarity of thinking. So the first is some type of purity, the second is some type of quietness, the serenity of the mind, and the third one is that we have deep insight into the nature of things. So the mind that can really discriminate, our sense of discrimination is very much colored by the lower desires of the mind. That we may think we're being very objective about things, that we're analyzing things in a certain way, that we can easily separate what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, what's shreyas and preyas, what will lead us higher and what will keep us attached to the world. But everything gets colored, so that what we think is some type of deep reasoning and analysis is actually rationalizing some internal desires that we have and telling ourselves that this is the best thing to do. Yeah. So this other type of grace of the mind is when that mind can really discern the difference between what is temporary and passing and unimportant in life and what is of essential value. So this will be that third element, we can say, of the grace of the mind. So if we can have these three different types of things, if we want to have that mind that will not drag us down, the mind that will be our friend, the mind that we can trust when we get some internal direction, that we can really feel the divine presence within and not be fooled. So Thakur uses that expression, let there be no theft within the heart. That means sometimes we're just fooling ourselves, deceiving ourselves. That we'll tell ourselves, yeah, this is the best thing for everybody involved, and it's really just best for us. So let there be no deception, that type of mind. So that'll be a type of grace of the mind. And then, in meditation, if that mind can become perfectly still and perfectly clear, then we can have the vision of the divine. Either we see a perfect reflection of the divine, or we can penetrate into the very essence of the mind. What's underlying that mind is pure consciousness itself. That is why Thakur always loves these songs, dive deep, O mind. What happens when we dive? The surface of the mind is in waves. We go a little bit deeper, and it goes down into that heart center. We go all the way to the bottom. We can see all the gems. We can have all sorts of divine visions and everything like that. And we can even go to areas in the ocean that are so deep that is only this infinite dense darkness. And Mother, thy dense darkness, it sparkles. We have another beautiful song. So this ability of the mind to become perfectly still and quiet and enter into that divine realm. This, of course, is grace. And then the third type that I talked about is the mind will not fool us. The mind will have developed that compass. So automatically everything that we do will be the right decision. Thakur says the expert dancer never misses a beat, never takes a false step. So all of these together, we can understand to be the grace of the mind. Now the others are all necessary. We want the grace of the Guru. We want all of the benefits of the grace of God. As I say, we can take that human birth and other things like that. So Guru Vaishnava, so all of these things. But if the mind doesn't cooperate, then nothing will be of any avail. So we pray for the grace of God in the form of the grace of the mind. May this mind remain sharp. May it remain sattvic. May it remain insightful. And may it be able to become serene and quiet and calm. So this, I think, is really one of the very nice teachings of Swami Krishna, as I say, emphasized by Swami Brahmananda, that the grace of the mind is everything. Thakur says, everything's a question of the mind. The liberation, bondage, both are a question of the mind. So we even here because of samadhi, where does it take place? In the mind, but that pure mind, that serene, quiet type of mind. So this is my prayer for all of us. Let us pray that we have the grace of Guru, grace of God, grace of devotees, and ultimately the grace of the mind.